I was just telling them and sharing with them, oh, you look beautiful. I'm looking at you on my laptop.
Thank you. Thank
So, again, my name is Kanjay Byron, and I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor here in the state of North Carolina and South Carolina. I am also your parenting and emotional processing coach. Tonight, I am happy to give you guys another installment, another important topic on parenting that has to do with attachment. And joining me is somebody very, very special and dear to my heart. She taught me everything I know. She was my clinical supervisor for 3 years, and she's been walking with me even after. And Miss Natasha Todd is a licensed clinical mental health counselor as well, and she supervises. She's an author. She is a coach. She could do anything. She's a creative. Like, she does everything.
Hey.
And I will also allow her to just share a little bit more about herself in a second. But tonight, as you know, Safe Space, we are here to help heal childhood emotional neglect or generational trauma. And our whole goal, in essence, is to help parents create safe spaces for their children to thrive through healing generational wounds or generational traumas. And so Miss Natasha is here to help me tonight, collaborating. And this is her first time doing an Instagram live, so it's exciting for me.
You
So
get to
I
teach me
was,
something now.
uh,
I say you get to teach me something.
yes, finally. So I put on my glasses because I couldn't see really well, but I'm gonna take them off for a little second. But I just want her to go ahead and introduce herself, and then we'll get into tonight's topic.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be on the gram. I am Natasha Pemberton Todd, and I position dreamers to live their God-given dreams. And I do that through a number of different approaches. Counseling is one of them. I am a therapist, have been a therapist for about 20 years. But I also do that through coaching. I do that through some of my creative endeavors. Both my husband and I are partners not only in life but also in business, and so we pioneer a number of businesses related to family life, and so that's how I position people to help live their dreams. So I'm happy to be on here today to share some things with you and to support to also just to chat with Kanjay because we have history and I enjoy talking with her. And hopefully you have lots of questions and you have lots of input, and so we can have a lively conversation. Great to meet you all.
Yes. So I'm hoping, I think I might have to share it a little bit more. Let me go ahead and share it to my Instagram wall so that people know that we are live. And we're going to go ahead and just start off, Miss Natasha. What is attachment? What is attachment?
Well, when we talk about attachment in the mental health space, we're talking about the connection that we have with another person. Human beings are born for attachment. So the connection we have with others is fundamentally what attachment is. A lot of times, when we're talking about that, though, we start with where life begins, and that is in the womb. And so, most of you, if those of you who are on here who are mothers, who've been pregnant before, as you're going through a lot of those kinds of, as you're going through pregnancy, you'll hear, if you're overachievers like myself, you probably have attended some of the classes, or you've had nurses talk to you about baby being able to attach and things like that. You would have heard the word in some way, shape, or form when it comes to babies, right? However, attachment doesn't just stop at infancy. It continues throughout life, and we are forever on a quest to attach, to connect with others in a real way. but that has impact. There are things that impact that attachment. But I'm going to keep it short because I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But attachment is about connecting, how we connect with others. And in this sphere where we're talking about safe space parenting, is how do we connect with our children, a child or children, and how do they connect with us?
Yes, awesome. So why is attachment or connection important?
Well, it's fundamentally important. One, because it's a human need and a human
Mhm.
desire, right? We are created for attachment. I know a lot of stuff to say. I can do bad all by myself, and every person, and I can pull my own self up by my bootstraps. But the reality of life is that we all need people. We need each other, and a lot of times because we've had bad experiences with people, we've
Mhm.
learned to survive in isolation. But the truth of the matter is, decades and decades of research has shown that when we are not connected with other human beings, not only physically but also emotionally, that we do not thrive. Actually, when you have, most of you may have heard of, a symptom, condition called failure to thrive. And a lot of time, when you're talking about failure to thrive with infants or with children, it's not just the physical things, it's the lack of emotional activity. And that's actually how attachment research was started. It was recognizing that kids in orphanages, who were in a war-torn country, the ones that got held and rocked and food and all of that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
they went through all of their normal milestones very efficiently, or very as expected. And those who were just left in their cribs and probably just shoved a bottle and from time to time, and maybe just changed, but they were pretty much left in their cribs to do whatever, they did not grow as quickly, and they actually regressed in some of their milestones, or were slow to reach a lot of their milestones, because the only factor that changed or shifted was how much they were held, how much they were touched and hugged and caressed and smiled at and all that kind of thing. And what struck the researcher, actually they didn't quite go to do that. They were looking at other things and found that commonality. Well, once they recognized that, there was this moment that, wait a minute, it's not a luxury for us to have warmth and to feel loved. It is a necessity for our very survival. A lot of times we've been, in fact, it was still prevailing thought, probably more, that you don't children don't need anything. They don't need anything besides to be fed and changed. They need the basics, and that's it. And now we learn that the social emotional foundation of a human being is as important as your physical health, if not more so. In fact, people who have healthy social connections, or a healthy social emotional connection, they overcome a lot of, they're able to hardship, they're able to rebound diseases a lot faster. So there's even a biological connection to just having that social emotional connection, or aka attachments. So Kanji, you're gonna have to reel me in, because
Uh,
I can get
no,
going
ma'am,
on
I'm not reeling
tangent, go
anything
all kinds of
in.
rabbit
This is
holes.
great.
Let me know when you need me to slow down.
I am not reeling anything in. This is amazing. And I continuously learn from Mrs. Natasha. So I love that you gave us a little bit of history. You gave us the biology behind it. I think you are really stating the case of how important attachment is. And so I would love to ask, what are some of the attachment styles?
in the names of the attachment styles. But because I'm an educator by nature, I like to go simple first and then get technical, right? So if this is your jam, we can get technical later. If you're like, what in the world is this? Let's just do simple so you can get the basic concept and then we can move on. So when you think of attachment, think of a number line. If I know it may have been eons ago since you did math, but I'm sure you remember number lines, right? You have this nice straight line, and in the middle is the point of equilibrium. In the middle is the point of neutrality. It is where the zero is. And to the left or to the right of that zero is where you find either positive or negative. Well, when we think of attachment, it's very similar. In the middle is where we find secure. That's the ideal. That is where we all want to be, that you have secure attachments. A secure attachment style says, I know that life happens. People are generally have good intentions, and even though bad things happen, we can rebound because people generally have good intentions, and there may be a few bad apples, but I'm fine. I'll be able to survive. That's a secure attachment style, right? But we have to the right and to the left of that. And to the right or left of that, you have the anxious attachment side. I don't really put them on any particular side. I allow you to, my creative side says, give some options. You can put them wherever, on either side. We just focused on the secure, the middle, and wherever you want to place the other ones, you can. So we have the anxious style on one side, and then we have the avoidance on the other side. Now, what does that mean? Well, most of you, if you are on the gram, I'm sure you know how to navigate Google, because the Instagram is just a little bit advanced in comparison to Google. So if you were to Google something called still face experiment, right? This is where we learn a little bit more about the other styles besides secure. In the still face experiment, which has been replicated several times, researchers looked at how a young child, looked how they responded to their mother's or their parents' engagement. So when I say engagement, I mean, I'm not talking about just giving them food, but we know when we have babies, we suddenly become mushy and we go like, oh, coochie coo, like baby, and a hype voice goes high pitched, and we make all kinds of animations typically, right? And the researchers were looking at how babies responded to that, and then what their response was like when parent no longer responded in that manner, right? And just FYI, for all of you who say, well, I don't talk to my with a baby voice, research actually shows that the high-pitched voice is what stimulates the language centers of the brain. So yes, there's a reason why we need to talk in high-pitched voices and why it naturally flows out of us as parents. It's because it stimulates those language centers. But that's another story. So as they were doing the still face experiment, they noticed that whenever the mother would engage with the child per normal at first, and the child would do what kids do. They will laugh and they'll coo and they'll reach for the parent. They'll do all of those things to show connection. And then when the parents shifted their way of interacting, and shifted meaning they had a still face, they were emotionless, expressionless, or they literally turned away from the child, and they stayed that way for a child would feel like for actually like 1 or 2 minutes, then they looked at the child's reaction, and what they saw was the child actually got distressed. Like the child tried even more to engage the parent. They started to cry more, they started to fuss more, they were literally reaching for the parent. And when they realized, when the parent did not reciprocate, then they got distressed, they went backwards, and they tried to even like get away from the parent, right? Because so what we saw there, one was an exhibition of being anxious about the parents' response or lack of response. Anxious as in they tried to re-engage more. They were reaching for the parent more. They were clingier. They were trying to do everything but throw a sink in order to get the parent involved, right? That's the anxious person is always, the anxious attachment style is always running towards trying to hold on or afraid of not being able to hold on, and which creates other actions which are clingy, and they always want to be close, and they're always assuming that somebody's going to leave them or things like that, right? Or this is a child who is going to always want to stick on to you, or they just always want to be around you, or anytime there's leaving, there's a big meltdown, things like that. You may want to look for those patterns. So apart from that, then you have the other reaction, right? When notice I said after a while, when they realize leaning in, trying to get the parents' attention wasn't working, which is the anxious style, they start to pull back and try to get away if they could. That's avoidance. Because what's going on now, as further research has done, they did all the neurobiology of it, and Kanja, you know how I love neurobiology of attachment, but they did the neurobiology of it, and then you can see that the distress centers in the brain of the child actually went up. So their stress levels went up, their cortisol levels went up, and they were trying, now the body in their brain, what was basically, the brain was actually sending signals that said, this is not safe. I am no longer safe. I'm no longer secure. And so they were trying to get away. They distanced themselves and did every avoid. That's where we get that term from, being avoidant, to avoid that connection because it no longer felt safe. Now, what does that mean altogether? Well, if that happens once or twice, life is not perfect. Things are going to happen. You're going to have situations where maybe you're on the phone and the child is crying or whatever, and you can't get to them. Fine. That happens once in a while. And then, you return, and once the parent re-engages, which is what they saw in this still face experiment, once the parent re-engaged and they were connected with the child again, they went through their same emotions, they were cooing, they were looking at the child, they were attuned to what was going on, all was well with the world, right? So the human body has the ability to recalibrate from those negative experiences. However, when those negative experiences outweigh the positive ones, when the emotional connection is broken more often than it is connected, then we develop a style that is to the right or to the left of that central point on your number line, right? And what happens with that, then it creates now a template in our brain for how to show up in the world. Let me tell you why that is like that. I'm getting to my happy place here. Because what the brain is doing, the brain, God has designed us in such a way that the brain is going to adapt to the conditions on the outside. So if the conditions around you are not safe, the brain is going to adapt a style to keep you safe, which is going to be either to lean in or to run away, one of the two. And when that template is laid, the brain likes to be very efficient, so it's going to assume that it's going to see relationships in context of that template until there is something greater with that writes that, whether a person who is more secure comes along, or you have a relationship that's more secure and that person is consistent, and they maintain that consistency of being there, being present, being attuned, and all of that, then that can shift. So just because it started doesn't mean it cannot shift. I want to make sure I put that out there, because sometimes it becomes, oh my gosh, I'm broken, never to be fixed. No, it can change, but you have to be intentional about changing it, right? So when that happens, then the child is now learning how to interact with the world. They're learning about relationships, and what the brain does is sets a template for, okay, this is how you have to be in this environment that you're going into. It's not very safe, so therefore you have to protect yourself. And protect yourself means that I distance myself from you, or protect yourself means I'm going to cling to the one person or one set of people that I know really, really hard. I'm not going to let go. I'm not going to let them out of my sight, because if I let them out of my sight, they may never come back, etc., etc., etc. And either to the right or the left of that, you will have disruptions in attachment. So it's important for us to, as parents, to be very, very aware, more than do they sleep through the night, or some of the other things we sometimes become preoccupied with. We really have to focus on the social emotional pieces of parenting, because what we're doing is we're setting up a template for how that child is going to interact with other people, including their spouse, which my husband and I have the pleasure of dealing with on a day-to-day basis, right? Including your spouse. You're setting a template for the rest of their life. And that's just something that is the reality of parenting. So a lot of books are written about, okay, how to get them to sleep through the night, or how to get them potty trained, or how to get them to adapt to a schedule that you want, and all of that kind of stuff. Not a lot of books are being written about how important it is for us to make sure that we are setting a right emotional environment for our children. And so a lot of us do a lot of things, but we're not necessarily connecting on an emotional level. And that's why attachment is so important, because in my practice, even right now, where I deal with women who are, women and children, but let me talk about the adults. I'm dealing with adults who are in their 40s, who are in their 50s, who are in their 60s, who are dealing with wounds from childhood. Not because they're sappy and they don't want to deal with life and they just want to be a victim, but because these things have real implications and real consequences. Whether we want to believe that or not, the body remembers and it shows up. And sometimes I moved on from that, and they moved on and moved on. They kept doing until you hit a wall in your 40s and 50s, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, but I was running from this stuff. I thought I dealt with this stuff. And now, no, now you have to sit and deal with it. So that's why attachment in the young days, and having a focus on a parenting attachment style, creating a secure attachment, is that important. And if I may say one more thing before I turn back to you, Kanji. When I started off, I said I've been a therapist for about 20 years. When I started off in the field, in therapy field, my plan was, because of course I'm a planner, I had a plan. My plan was to work with adolescents. My plan was to work with adolescents, and for whatever reason, as God would have it, I found myself in positions where I worked with very young kids, and I did that for a long time. It was not my plan, but God made sure I was there. And it was great. And in retrospect, it was great because I had to learn and unlearn a lot of things I thought, were just things that came from my childhood, that, we learned about upbringing, about what children are, et cetera, et cetera. And a large part of the thing that revolutionized my outlook and my approach was the attachment. The very first thing that we talked about, or my supervisors talked with me about, was the attachment piece, not the other pieces, behavior and just deal. We dealt with that, but from the spring of attachment. And the moment that I was able to latch onto that, a lot of other things fell into place. Even working with a lot of the kids, some kids and teens that I've worked with over the years who are in foster care or adopted, etc., etc. Getting that connection piece is fundamental. It is fundamental. Yet it is the thing that we spend the least amount of time on.
Yeah.
But that's another for sure.
Thank you for saying that, because I constantly tell parents that, the greatest behavioral modification tool to use with kids is your connection. Connect with them, bond with them, and some of the issues that you're having, it will disappear. Because a lot of the times kids, they have to build the feeling vocabulary and so forth. And so a lot of what we see come out in their behaviors. And so, and honestly, I feel from my work with kids, and I'm so happy you highlighted that you first began working with kids. It makes so much sense, because I also had to unlearn and, renew my mind in certain areas. But the more, I think I lost my train of thought. Let me see if I get it. I think, yeah, with the behavior modification, attachment again is one of the biggest tools that you would ever use, one of the best tools
Mhm.
that you can ever have as a parent, to help your child along. And I guess that also leads me into my next question. um, so, but just to recap really quick, so Miss Natasha, I call her Miss Natasha. um, she talked about the secure parenting style. She talked about the avoidant parenting style, dismissive avoidant. It's also known as dismissive avoidant. She talks about the anxious or preoccupied parenting style, and then there's the fearful avoidant parenting style, which is more, it's called the disorganized parent, not a parenting style, sorry, attachment styles. It's very disorganized. And so I wonder if a parent um, isn't aware of the, how can I ask this? If a parent has an attachment style that's not secure, um, we kind of hit on it a little bit, but what are some of the challenges that you've seen in their ability to connect with their children, or even have the capacity for some of the behaviors that they see?
um wow, that's a big one. We see a range of things, right? So we see the extremes basically. A lot of us are familiar with the different kinds of parenting styles, where you have the permissive parent, you have the parent who is more hardline um, in their approach, and then you have the one who's in between. It's the same mirror, right? Because what I found is that if you look at the parenting style, you can almost guess the parent's attachment style, because they tend to mirror each other quite often. Um, so the person who is more avoidant and can be or considered dismissive, um, that person is going to lean into feelings very much. They're going to be, it's this, it's that, and that's it. you know I don't care how you feel, just get it done. And a lot of us were raised like that. If you're West Indian and if you're Black, you'll probably have run into that at some point in time. And I like to say to people, because I don't want this to be a beat up session, right? I like to say to make sure that we have the caveat and the lens that, again, the brain adjusts to match the conditions that you're meeting, right? So if you think about of our ancestors who were slaves or who were pioneering in really hard times, some people may have grown up in war or all kinds of other hardships. A whole lot of time for you to be there nursing feelings. All right. So there was a function for that, because to sit and just kind of to spend time to be introspective and all of that could get you killed at a certain point, right? So there is a place for that approach. However, what we have learned about body and how the body functions is that that does not need to be our 365 24/7 365 approach to life, because it keeps our bodies in a stress response system as opposed to being in a relaxed state. And relaxation is where our body's been in a relaxed state, where our blood pressure is down, our oxygen levels are up, and all of that is where we're able to think, problem solve, and use prefrontal cortex of our brain, the part that we really want to use to move us forward. We need to have that. And if that's not firing, we're only using what some people call the reptilian brain, or the back part of our brain, which is fight, flight, or freeze. If we stay in that state 365 days a year for the rest of our lives, it creates disease. It creates, we are going to run into a wall at some point. And that's why sometimes, you're up and you're about, you take a licking, keep on ticking. And then you turn 50 and all of a sudden you're in the hospital with a massive heart attack or some autoimmune disease or something like that. It's because we have not learned how to bring that down.
Yep.
So I'm saying there is a place for that hard line. There is a place for the let's lay back and everything's all right deal, right? But if we stay in either state for long, it's not going to be productive later on. So we're always trying to find that balance, and human beings are not particularly great naturally at balance. So it's something we have to be intentional about. So a lot of times when coming back to directly answer your question, when we see that person's parenting style, oftentimes it reflects their attachment style. Those who are more anxious in their attachment style tend to be more, they lean in a lot. They may be more active parents. They're probably sometimes a little more overbearing, but oftentimes a little bit more emotionally attuned to their child, but sometimes too much so. So again, extremes. Um, Sometimes, baby girl, baby boy don't need to know every detail of your life. Some things are for adults only. So that you may have that extreme, and then you have the other extreme of I don't care how you feel, you just do as I say, follow the rules, da da da, and make sure you don't bring any trouble home person. you know yes ma'am, no ma'am, there's never any room for sharing how I really feel. That's the avoidance style, because the avoidance style is comfortable with not having too much depth of emotional connection. They're very big on, let's get things done, let's do this or whatever, but I'm not emotionally connecting on a deeper level, right? And not because intentionally it's like, okay, I don't want to really know, but just because oftentimes we just don't have those skills. We weren't raised with those skills. How many of us grew up saying, well, I feel anxious about such and such, and that was really, really hurtful to me when you did such and such. Like, how many of us grew up saying that? And like it had a good response to it? Probably very few, right? If you even got a word out is the question, because you if you're like me, if you're as old as I am, to get a word out about how you feel in a situation that was heated with the adults, you had to factor in whether or not you wanted to attend the dentist tomorrow or not. Do you want to do you want to do that? And more often than not, we don't really want to, so you say nothing. So you stuff your feelings and you keep it stifled, and you don't really share, and you oftentimes don't have a place to share how you're really feeling on the inside. So we learn to dismiss our feelings, we learn to dismiss how what's going on with us, and so we learn to do that with other people as well, because we've learned, again, the brain set up a template, right? And that template is feelings don't matter. The reality, however, is that they do, because even though we don't give expression to it, our body still feels it, and then it just stuffs it in a corner somewhere until there's too much dust in the corner, and then it starts to explode in places we don't want it to. So that's what happens. But yes, that's how we see it show up. You find that they're going to either lean in too much or not leaning enough in their parenting style with their kids. So they may be doing all of the functional things like feeding, clothing, taking care of bills, etc., etc. But whether or not they're really connected with their kid, whether or not their child feels comfortable sharing what's really on their minds and hearts, that's not always the case. And since I work with children and teenagers, I am fully aware of just how much they don't share with parents, and why they don't share.
Wow.
So yeah.
Mm, that's so true. So, so true. So, how can a parent who may be struggling with that emotional bond, that emotional connection with the child, what are some places that they can start maybe challenging themselves and learning to, connect and retrain and recondition the brain so that they can work towards providing that safety for their child to share their
Yeah.
feelings and their emotions?
There's a two-pronged approach to that. One, oftentimes we don't know what we don't know, right? So a lot, I've heard parents often say, "Oh yeah, we have a great relationship." Then I talk to the child and I find out otherwise, right? And there's all of this stuff on the back end that's going on. Because the parent's perception of what is great and the child's perception of what is great, two different things. So here, I think the fundamental piece of it is to assume that we don't know what we don't know. And as a result, commit to doing our own work. That's where it starts. It starts with us being our own, doing our own work. If we become more comfortable with our own emotions, with our own stuff, we're better able to hold and to manage what another human being brings to us, whether that's a child or it's our spouse or, you know, our boss. We're better able to manage that when we are to manage ourselves first. So the fundamental is to first assume that you don't know what you don't know, and choose to have an attitude, a teachable spirit, to lean in to learning more, to recognizing more. What is it that I don't, you know, that I don't get? You know, one of the things I've seen over the years, and I don't know what I think your demographic is similar to mine, but a lot of us assume that the ways that we parent or the ways that we see parenting and see children are very much rooted in culture when they're actually rooted in trauma. And so we have to explore that and
Wait,
debunk some of
pause.
that.
That was good. I think you say that again. Say that again.
A lot of the things that
Rewind.
we assume that they are, oh, well, this is how we do it as a culture. They're actually trauma responses. They're socialized trauma responses, things that we learn because that's how we, our parents or grandparents, great grandparents were treated. And so we've passed that on. And again, hear me loud and clear. There was a place for that because your life was in danger. However, the very few of us live in that kind of circumstance today. Now, of course, there are the systemic issues. I'm not going to ignore that, etc., etc. But for the most part, we're not living in that 24/7. And as a result, we have to add more tools. We have to assume that we need to add more tools to our toolbox so that we can not just survive anymore, but we can prepare our children and model to our kids how to thrive. We can't just continue to just survive. We have to be able to thrive. And that requires a very different set of skills. So yes, we survived X. Yes, we survived slavery. Yes, we survived the Holocaust. Yes, we survived a whole number of horrific things. But now can we thrive in the promised land? Those are a whole very different set of skills. And so we have to assume that we don't know what we don't know. And so we have to approach parenting and approach this whole connecting with our kids, not from the what do I need to do for my kid, but more so how can I connect with myself? When I learn to connect with myself, I can learn to connect with my kid. Because then I can manage when my child is frustrated and they want to throw, my 3-year-old wants to throw a tantrum, I can see past just the fact that they're being quote unquote disrespectful, and I can see, well, they're tired or they're hungry or they're overwhelmed with everything that we've done for today. I can see all of that because I learned how to stop and connect and check in with me. I don't push past the fact that I'm exhausted and say I'm tired instead. I know I'm exhausted. That means I can't do anything else. I need to lay down and sleep. When I'm aware of that for myself, I can be aware of that for my child. So again, assume that we don't know what we don't know, you know, and be committed to be lifelong learners of new skills so that we learn new skills and model new skills to our kids, because they're going to be in a very different world than what we came up with. There are going to be some similarities, but there are some things they're going to meet differently. And so we're going to need to be prepared to provide them with the mentals so that they're able to thrive again and survive if they need to, but thrive, which they must.
Yeah. Whew. That was powerful. There's so much to unpack. I'm like, do we need to do a part 2 or something? But
well, see, make sure we didn't flood your view viewers first because
Uh,
we went in really deep. What do you guys
that's
think? Put some comments in there, guys, about what you think about what we're saying. Any thoughts? Do we go too fast? Do we need a part 2 or 3 or 4? Put
I
it in there
know.
for us.
Oh man, this is so good. It needs to be broken down. Yes, please share. Please share any questions, any comments. You are gleaning from 20 years of experience on this topic. So if something that she's saying is resonating with you and you're identifying your own attachment styles, if you're seeing how, sometimes you can feel shut down or amped up, as within yourself or with your parenting, please, 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 please do share any questions or comments that you have.
Yeah.
I think what is a practical way that a parent could start checking in with themselves?
Yeah. So one thing is, of course, I'm biased, so I'll say find a therapist. Thanks to the Affordable Care Act and later on COVID, we have more access to clinicians and in an affordable way than we had 10 years ago. So take advantage of that. Most of you may have a job that offers employee assistance program where they give especially with this pandemic, like they've just been doling out sessions like crazy. So take advantage of that. You work hard enough for it, take advantage of it. At least test it out and see if you like it. And again, therapy is a goodness of fit. So if you don't like the first person that you met, you don't feel a connection with them, keep looking until you find the right one. But I will say that that's a great way because you have a neutral person who is also confidential, to be able who can give you feedback on what they're seeing, because we can assume a whole lot about who we are until we get feedback from others who are looking on at what we're doing. So that's one way. Another one, if you're not ready to take that step, or if you're already in that place and you want to go deeper, you can eat, just as how we find discounts for our favorite foods and our favorite whatever we like to indulge in, and we will go scour the stores for it and stuff like that. We can find books, we can find podcasts, we can find YouTube videos or Instagram videos like the one we're doing now. We can look up hashtags, find the information, and just start listening. Listening something different. I often say to people, most of the people who I work with are like first timers in the sense of first in their family to be doing X or Y or Z, right? Trying to do something different, trying to change the trajectory of the generation. Whenever we're the pioneers, we're trying to change, you can't do that in a vacuum. So you have to intentionally get around people who are where you want to be, people who are going in the same direction as you. You have to immerse yourself in listening to things, seeing things, reading things that may feel uncomfortable, but you're going to get the language over time, right? So it's the same, like, if you want to be financially literate, kind of have to just listen to a lot of and feel like a fish out of water. You don't know what they're talking about, these 500 SOP, S&P, whatever it is that they talk about. You don't know, but after a while it gets in your psyche and you start understanding it and it starts rolling off your tongue like nothing else. It's the same thing with the parenting piece. So reading books on parenting, I would recommend Attachment Focused Parenting by Dr. Dan Hughes. He's one of the people I've trained under in those early days. Anything by Dr. Bruce Perry, who recently co-authored a book with Oprah Winfrey. But in my early days of learning about children and attachment style, I also sat under a lot of his teaching. A lot of his research and stuff like that. But the latest one, What Happened to You, that's a really simple read, but it's really, really good about helping us to like take a deep dive as to what's gone on with our lives. There's an organization called attach.org, I think is their website, that the focus is to help people learn more about attachment and attachment styles, especially with regards to children. So they have a lot of resources on their website, a lot of articles. They've had conferences over the years. I'm not sure what they've done during COVID, but they've had so I'm saying here are some places to start looking at some of these reading differently, hearing some different things. Another really great one is this is fairly recent, Parenting from the Inside Out, and I just really learned of that one. I haven't really dived deeply into it, but just reading the overview. It's good. Okay, there you go. See, good stuff. See, I trained her well. but I heard the overview and I was like, okay, this is definitely the direction you want to go in. So that's another great one that you can dive into. And again, just learning about you, and I recommend highly it didn't start with you. I can't remember the author's name. But It Didn't Start With You is a really great one too.
Mark Wool,
Lowry, is it Lowry? No, I'm gonna have to look it up. But that's a really great one. So I'm saying, get with podcasts, get with other with therapists for sure. Find YouTube videos or what. Start listening to this stuff that's different, that talks about who you are on the inside. Back in the day, it used to be the Oprah show, where she used to delve into all these topics and bring on the thing. Now we have Dr. Phil. And I know people have their things about their pros and cons with that. But what I found is that what it's done is just opened up more conversations so that people are more comfortable even just exploring these topics, right? Yeah. Whether you agree with their methodology or not, but at least open yourself up to being able to talk about and introspect and see where you are. There are lots of great workbooks out there on different topics that allow for you to just kind of go through and kind of learn some more. I suggest strongly that those be, that you go through that with a trained professional, because sometimes things come up that you may not be prepared to handle on your own and need skills to do that. But those are starting points to at least stir the pot where that is concerned. And as you get more comfortable with talking about these things and looking at these things, you'll be more comfortable being able to feel proud to be able to bring those things to you. One very, 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 very basic, a step that you can take today is to Google the feeling charts on Google. Click on images. You get tons of images with a ton of feeling words. And then every day or every couple of days or every week, however you want to start, challenge yourself to identify which feelings have you had this week, which feelings have you had to be. Get a journal, write it down, and just keep track. The reason why that's important is that language allows us to be able to what we need and what we want. When a child doesn't have language, what happens? They turn into tantrums. When adults don't have language, we have road rage, attacking flight attendants on the plane.
Attacking people on stages. Sorry.
Exactly. And we end up acting out as well. So challenging yourself just to even become comfortable with being able to identify feelings to yourself. Feelings beyond sad, happy, mad, and glad. Like, there are like thousands of words beyond that. So get comfortable with being able to identify those, because that will determine how much you can pass it on to your kids. Let's learn feeling words together, and you can teach them their own feelings, the vocabulary, so that they can tell you when they're frustrated, rather than just tossing something on the floor or laying out, oh, I feel frustrated, or I feel overwhelmed, or I feel this, or I feel that. That has common language. And one of the things that I didn't talk about earlier is that, I have a child of my own, and it's a double-edged sword that she has two therapists for parents, because from an early age we taught her to, and because of my background, I was instrumental in doing this, was just teaching her how to use her words to describe her feelings. And one way that I did that was just when she was sleepy, I would say, you're rubbing your eyes, you're doing this, you're acting sillier than usual. I just described the behavior that I was seeing and said, I think it looks like you're sleepy, right? She wasn't old enough to tell me, no, I'm not sleepy yet. And, and we would just keep doing that. And after a while, she was the one saying, Mommy, I'm rubbing my eyes. I'm
Wow.
acting silly. I think I might be sleepy. Right? Because she started to learn to recognize her own behavior, and as a result, she was able to regulate her own. So once you've learned your feeling vocabulary and be able to recognize it for yourself, you can now use that same language to help the kids recognize when they're frustrated, when they're angry, when they're hurt, when they're disappointed, and then work together on a solution as to how to deal with it. If we don't have language and everything is angry, we really don't know what's going on. And anger everything just gets dealt with in a one-stop shop. But there's so many different emotions that we have going on. We have to deal with those things individually. So if you want to just start out the gate today and it's low cost, you don't have the extra room, it's Google Feelings Chart. Start there. Challenge yourself to get it out. I'm a therapist, but I have several of them, and I have them in a folder, and I pull them out ever so often because I'm like, I can't figure it out today. Like, what's going on? Flip through until you find the one that sounds or feels right. And we have multiple emotions about any incident. So don't think you only have to have one feeling. You can have 10 different emotions going on about one thing. So just challenge yourself to do that, and then get into spaces and places and with people who can give you some light on that. And that is going to revolutionize how you're able to even think about parenting, because now you're more attuned to yourself and how you're coming across, and then they can be more attuned. You're modeling for your kids too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. I think that last part that you also said is huge. How important it is, once we are, we're able to have that emotional capacity for ourselves, and we've learned our own coping skills and way of coping with our emotions. We're able to teach our children. They're able to learn from us and how we respond to difficult things. So I think it's so important for us to learn to self-regulate, so that we have the capacity to help our children regulate.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna put one caveat in there. It's not really a caveat, but it's really more of an underscore. That includes our boys.
Yeah.
Let's not assume that it's a girl thing.
Yep.
Because we put a lot of expectations on our little boys that they shouldn't cry and they need to suck it up and all kinds of stuff. And then we wonder why they can't be emotionally connected in relationships, and they go from person to person to person later on because they can't go any deeper in their emotional connection. We're asking them to do things as adults that we haven't taught them to do as kids.
Yeah.
So that includes our boys. We don't need them to be falling out every 5 minutes, but they do need to be able to have a place and space where they can be real about their emotions, where they can feel safe. And which better place than home to be able to do that? They don't necessarily need to go do it down the street with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, but home should be a safe place where your kids can unwind and be themselves, and we can talk through it. You can provide them with skills, with strategy, or whatever to deal with whatever's coming up. But if we keep telling them, suck it up and be a man and be strong and all of this other stuff, you can only suck it up for so long before it starts spilling out in the wrong place.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And for all the stuff that our boys have to go through on a day-to-day basis, we need them to spill before it gets to a bad place. So that includes our boys. We want them to be able to say, yes, I'm upset, I'm frustrated, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other, and at least be able to say it to themselves so they know what to give themselves. Right? So if you're frustrated, what do? Do you need to take some deep breaths? Do you need to walk away? Do you need to to go and draw? Do you need to go shoot some hoops? Right? Rather than I'm okay, and then next thing you know, the one person says the wrong word and they're like punching somebody's lights out, and then you have another state on your hands. So that includes our boys. It's not just a female thing. This is for all of us, so that when they get older, maybe Kanji and I can retire early. You know, we won't have to be dealing with so many issues
Yeah.
that come up in relationships because we're expecting them to now talk about feeling and after they have not been taught. Anyway,
Yeah.
just wanted to put that in there.
That's so good. That's such a good caveat to leave with us because I think you're right. We have to break the stigma of emotions and emotional processing is only a thing that a woman should do. So I think that was a very, very important exclamation to make. Um, Man, this has been an amazing topic. There's so much meat here, so much that I want to unpack. I can't stop thinking about what you said with the trauma, how we're parenting in trauma, and we're not in that space anymore. So even with the suck it up, what are you crying for? Like they're not in a space where that response is necessary. But I mean, and it just goes back to what we're trying to do or what we're trying to raise awareness with is how that generational trauma, even in your parenting style, could come out. So I mean, I hope that. Go ahead.
No, I was just no, I'm smiling because I'm like if you guys out there want to hear more, you gotta put those comments in there so Conjure will know how to set up her program.
Man, please, definitely comment. Let us know if this is something that you want to hear more of, and we'll definitely do a part two. I know I probably might have to not even wait for the comments and just call forth the part two because I think, and you guys see me putting my head down because I'm still learning from this woman. I'm here taking notes. So um, I'm taking notes because I'm seeing things. See, Sonia's saying yes, part two. Sonia, maybe we might pull you
Yes,
into the
Sonia's
part.
like part two.
Oh man, Sonia is my clinical supervisee sister. We have been rolling from day one, and she
Yes.
also works with children. So maybe one of these days I will. Oh, somebody else said part two.
Oh,
Maybe
somebody
one
else
of
said
these
part
days.
two. All right.
Ah, that's awesome. Thank you. Your inside story. I love that name. Your Inside Story LLC, amazing. So I just want to thank Miss Natasha. I still call her Miss Natasha affectionately out of respect. She taught me everything I know, like I told you guys. The reason why I think I love working with kids and am so passionate about attachment and the brain, all these things. Um, so I just want to thank you so much for, accepting the call, sharing your wisdom with us. We're definitely um, looking forward to the part two. We'll figure out a date and a time to
Yeah.
have that. Any final parting words that you want to leave with parents who have experience? Yeah, she taught us everything we know. But any
And you guys are
parting,
doing great things.
praise God. Any parting words for parents who maybe this information resonated with, and any words of encouragement for them as they probably think about going on their own healing journey.
Absolutely. Think about the fact that this is a journey. I remember when I was younger that I would think, I was raised with my grandmother primarily, and so I was around all these older people, and I would think, oh my goodness, you were given the impression that they have arrived, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and until you get into like your 30s and 40s, you go like, wait a minute, what? There was stuff going on. This is know that this is a journey. Not we not renting this information to start saying, pointing from making you feel like, you're the worst thing since sliced bread. It is an invitation to continue the journey. To know that as you grow, your kids will grow. One of the first things we learn in therapy as therapists is that your clients aren't going to go beyond where you are. So that's why we are required and we have to keep learning every year, every couple of years, because we need to grow. In the same way as parents, we are modeling for our kids. So this is a journey. So start small, be gracious with yourself. There are some things we didn't know what we didn't know. Okay, it's spilt milk. Commit to yourself today to start that journey, to not be afraid to to go on that journey of Pandora's box. Find yourself another friend, parent friend, or if you're married, have your partner, reach out to your partner and talk about it, see if, but find someone who will go on this journey with you or who is on this journey with you. I believe in the village mindset. I believe in the fact that you need to have people around you to support your journey and your decision. And so if you can't find them close to you, keep following Kanji, and safe space parenting. Look out for things from other people who are also doing things around this parenting world, and listen, think, talk about it, journal, just keep growing and leaning into this. Find a therapist and talk through some of this stuff so that you can be a better version of you between now and next year. We're not looking for perfection, but we are looking for progress.
Awesome. That was amazing. And that's an awesome way to end tonight's Instagram live discussion. I thank everybody who signed on and signed off and came back, and we appreciate you. Oh, Sonia says mic drop. So we just thank you guys for being a part of this conversation. And I thank you so much again, Ms. Natasha, for just accepting this invitation to come and share your knowledge with us on the very, 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 very important attachment. It goes right into the ways to heal childhood emotional neglect. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed and that something that was said resonated and was helpful. Again, if you want to hear more, continue, or maybe call to action, maybe just say something or write something below that really stood out, resonated, so we know what you're taking away from this conversation as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So have a great evening, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.